And recession, stagflation, these are some of the terms used in describing the current state of Nigeria's economy. But for some observers, these terms don't add up. CNBC Africa's Onyi Sunday caught up with Joseph Tegbe, head of marketing at KPMG at the Nigeria Economic Summit, and discussed his views on the Nigerian economy. Take a look.
I think it's quite challenging. Just like Doyin Salami described it this morning. You get worried when you talk about stagflation, but when an economy is described to be in a worse state than stagflation, then it gives you a lot of worry. And I think the key challenge is not the fact that we're in recession. One or two other oil-producing countries are in recession, but the issue is, what is the plan to get out of that recession? How articulated is that plan? How robust is that plan? And have we started to implement that plan? I think that's the challenge.
Now today we're talking made in Nigeria. Taking a look at what the country is experiencing at the moment. Is patronizing made in Nigeria the solution? Is that the way to go?
Not necessarily, but it's one of the solutions. If you don't look inwards and start internal production, the issue of diversification can be realized. Diversification is not about diversifying from oil to mining, because there are no value add. So you need to actually diversify into sectors where you're actually adding value, like manufacturing, agric, where you talk about processing and production. That is where you start talking about real diversification. And that's what made in Nigeria, from the point of view of exports, from the point of view of reducing the funds you're spending on imports, the made in Nigeria makes a lot of sense. However, for you to be effective, when you talk about made in Nigeria and you're looking inwards, you need to be competitive. Whatever you do has to be competitive. It's not by looking inwards or made in Nigeria by doing substandard products. The world is a global village today. So if you do substandard product, nobody will buy it.
Talking about, of course, policies, this initiative made in Nigeria cannot operate in a vacuum. Let's take a look at the policy direction of the current administration. You talk about competitiveness as well. Do you think the current policies that exist, or regulations, or even the environment that exists at the moment will make this initiative a reality? Or is it just something we're just going to keep on talking about on paper?
I'll be very frank with you. That's one of the biggest challenges we have today about this issue about made in Nigeria. I think the biggest challenge this government has today is an alignment of policies. If you have policies that are trade-like, I'll give you an example. When you have CBN come up with 45 items being banned, your question is that the jurisdictions of CBN? Is it trade matter? So why is somebody in CBN sitting down and banning 41 items without due consultations with, Ministry of Trade? Today, customs says, oh, they've increased tariff and they've made so much money in revenue. Now, those places where they have or products they have increased tariffs on, are those the kind of products we are trying to, ban from being importation, or those who want to encourage, export? So all these things have to be properly aligned. Policies have to be aligned from trade to finance to fiscal. So you talk about monetary, fiscal, trade policies have to be thoroughly aligned for you to actually realize the benefit of made in Nigeria or local production.
When I heard about the theme made in Nigeria, the first thing that came to mind for me was SMEs. Someone says this theme is the theme for whose time has come. And I say to myself, is anyone thinking SMEs in this space? It's a good thing you actually mentioned that.
I'm quite familiar with a couple of people in government. Ministry of Trade and Minister of Trade, Industry, Trade and Investment is thinking SME. There are a couple of institutions or agencies that actually support SMEs. SMEDAN, BOI, they support SMEs. But I will tell you, we need to sit back and have a properly articulated policies. The access to fund is a big problem for SMEs. And some of the SMEs, the kind of requirements that a typical commercial bank require from a borrower. It's not the kind of things that the SMEs can afford. So you need to come up with something more creative, more innovative.
I hear what you're saying when you talk about the role of the government. Let's talk about the role of the private sector in all of this. I mean, no doubt, we all know the relationship between the commercial banks and, of course, players in the oil and gas space. And now that, let's call it the oil sector is worse off for it, the question now is, isn't it time for the commercial banks to take initiative and embrace the SME space? I mean, a sector that most people say have actually been overlooked over time. What's your take?
I perfectly agree with you. I was having a discussion earlier with somebody, and I said it's not just governments, creating an enabling environment, that even the private sector need to get their act together. There are some part of private sector today. You talk about banking. I have never seen any developed country in the world. This might sound very mundane, it might sound very operational, but the reality is, you drive around Nigeria, you go to a street, the finest building you see on that street is the bank. Who are you servicing? The people you are servicing are almost going out of business. Their buildings are almost dilapidated. So what does that tell you? The guys who are bringing money into the bank are struggling, but the banks are thriving. There needs to be a relook at how the financial sector services the productive sector of this economy. In terms of margin, in terms of cost of funds, and in terms of advice. It is not only by advancing money to somebody. You can also render advice on how that person or that business utilizes the fund. So I think the bank I see in a revamped Nigerian economy, in a made-in-Nigerian-driven Nigerian economy, I see the banks playing a different role than they are playing today. And it's an area that we need to look at seriously. You can't run any business anywhere in the world at an average 25–30% cost. And that's why commercial banks' money is not even attractive to SME. That's why you talk about SME, you're talking about BOI and some other intervention facility or intervention funds.
That was Joseph Tegbe, head market at KPMG, sharing his thoughts on the state of the Nigerian economy.